It's so many people don't have the courage to try. It's that thing that coming back from old man. If they give it to you, say yes.
So, Paul, if you wouldn't mind for the audience introducing yourself.
I'm Paul Graham, and I'm President and CEO of Döhler, the Americas.
And you are also, what else are you this year?
And I'm also very happy and very honored to be President of FEMA, which is the Flavor and Extract Manufacturers Association. Super happy about the last one as well.
Can't wait to dive into a lot of different things. But before we do, I would love to hear about your really interesting journey that got you to where you are.
Super. Well, Laurette, we finally made it work.
We did.
We tried for a little while, but so we're great to be here, and I'm super excited to be here.
I'm so happy you're here in person, too.
Yeah, it's super good. And Chicago, I love.
Yeah.
So here we go.
And the sun came out when you came.
It did. It's a bit cool this morning, but here it is. So why don't we, I guess my journey started in Australia. I am Australian, although I have lived in England for a little while, and I have an English passport and an Australian passport. So I don't know what that makes me now, a little mixed up,
That makes you really cool that you
Okay.
have both passports, because a lot of us would love that.
And maybe I'm close to getting my Moroccan passport,
Oh,
so I'll have all
nice.
three. I can be like a bit like James Bond or something. But so it all began in Australia. So I grew up in a place called Adelaide. So Adelaide is, for those who don't know Australia, it's in the middle, so between the East Coast and the West Coast. My parents were both school teachers, which was like, wow, your parents were school teachers. That was good and bad, because my parents decided I wasn't learning much at school, so I had to do school every night, English with mum, math with dad. So yeah, one of eldest of three brothers. And they were school teachers, but they went on and did some crazy things in their life. Real entrepreneurs, I would say.
And probably really shaped who you are.
Yeah, my dad, he certainly was, I would say. My mum also, she was the one that whipped me scholastically, that I had to do better. But Dad, I think, probably gave me the values that I've taken. I tried to espouse to and tried to live up to like him. It was all about hard work. He always used to say to me, you know what, Paul, you can do anything you want in your life. If you want it hard enough, you apply yourself and you try. He always used to say, if any time in your life someone asks you for a promotion and if you think, oh, I'm not ready for that, just say yes, jump in and dive in, and you'll make your way and you'll learn. And that's actually pretty much what he's
It's
done.
really good advice. And I've heard the difference between men and women on that note is that men typically will take that promotion whether they're ready for it or not, and women tend to go, wait, I'm not ready, I don't know that. So I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
If you're given the promotion, somebody believes that you're ready for it, and go for it.
Yeah, and he did that, and that's happened. If I think about various things that I've done along the way, I mean, I did all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. It's been an interesting journey to get to where I am right now.
Yeah. So then what happened? So you're in Australia. You went to school.
So I grew up in school. We move around a lot. My parents they left teaching and they started running businesses. They created a school business, which they called Select. I think it's still going. They then sold that. They created then some tourist businesses, which they did super well at. My mother, because she was English, used to write books about Australian words and the meaning of them. Dad did all sorts of crazy things, from being a town crier to inventing a building frame, like a steel frame called Andy frame, to building all sorts of things he created.
Entrepreneurial people.
Really entrepreneurial. And he always used to say, Paul, if you're going to work for someone, work for someone. Once you start not working from someone, you're done. It will be super hard. I guess as you as an entrepreneur, I guess you would probably know that. Super hard to go and work for someone again.
True. Very true.
So I then, my first job ever was picking grapes, grape picker. So I picked grapes, and after my first 2 weeks, I was super excited. I came running home to tell my mother that I've been promoted. I've been promoted. She said, what are you talking about? I got promoted because I got to be the bucket carrier. So when you pick grapes, you go on a line, you pick the grapes, you fill up your bucket, and then you pick your bucket up and you carry it and you put it in the trailer. So the bucket, my big promotion was because I picked faster than everything else. I guess the other thing that my old man taught me is this very competitive streak about everything's I want to win at, or everything's competition. I'm not sure that's a good or a bad thing, but that's where it is.
I think it's good.
So I picked faster than everyone else. It was a big race for me. And then they said, right, you can empty your bucket, you can empty everyone else's bucket, and then get back on the line and go and continue on. And my mother said, wow, did you get anything for it? And I went, oh, I forgot to ask if I got any more money. But I was just super happy that I got promoted on my first 2 weeks of my first ever work.
That was the sign, a leadership sign.
I think, then I didn't know what to do. I worked in a kitchen. So if I think of, I've talked about, if you look on my LinkedIn thing, I talk about culinary curiosity. I learned how to cook, so I can cook. I can make pretty much anything from scratch, hollandaise, emulsion sauces, you name it. I learned how to cook, so I started working in a restaurant, and my job, I had to get in there first thing in the morning, 7 o'clock, with a little scourer sponge, and I had to clean the walls and I had to clean the ceiling. It was a terrible job. Paid nothing until the chef came in at 10. And then I had to jump down, make the chef coffee. Very hierarchical working in a restaurant. And had to call him chef. Yes, chef.
Of course.
And then I had to go back and peel potatoes, all this, wash pots and pans and all that sort of stuff. One day, he didn't turn up and the second chef didn't turn up, and there was a brigade. And they went, and because I was curious, I'd ask him, I'd say, let me do schnitzels, or let me do this or that, or let me help out in service. And this is a packed restaurant. It's a Sunday. I always remember it was like, like 150 covers. Everyone's there. No one turned up. And they said, Paul, you're it. I'm a young boy. You're it. So I had to take over a brigade. And that was super hard.
What's a brigade? Sorry.
So the team of people. You're taking over the chefs.
You're taking
up people
over
like
the entire team.
People in appetizers, entrees, desserts.
So like on the show, The Bear, you're the one that's going, you're the one leading.
You're calling it.
Calling everything. Yep.
And then plating it and make sure it goes out. And then when I'd finished service, I then had to do all the dishes. It's like such a...
wow. But you know what? Those are like huge lessons. That was huge.
I think that was the other thing. Old man was work hard. Work hard, don't shirk, turn up, be present, jump in, don't say no, and you'll learn it. And so I did that. I kept on doing that. But I thought, you know what? I mean, I'm wearing white today, but white's really not my color. It makes me look a little pasty. So I thought, you know what? I don't think I could be a chef. And it's whilst I really loved the fact that I could cook and I cook at home still, I thought I can't imagine myself being a 40-year-old chef. I was like, that's not what I want to do. So I remember thinking, what can I do? And I started to think, well, I'll go and get into sales. And I sold all sorts of things, from thermal binders.
What's a thermal binder?
Yeah, I'm the sort of guy you don't invite at a dinner party because I'm super boring about. Yeah. I can explain thermal binders, velo bind, which is the 2 plastic strips, or a spiral bind. There are 3 types of binding documents. Very boring.
Very boring.
So I go and get.
I mean, who can sell something so boring?
Well, I thought, how do you go and sell this? And I thought, it was all cold calling. So there was a company called Kelly Country, $300. I got 2 suits. One was teal green, maybe forest green. It was double-breasted, had big shoulder pads. I look back now and go,
oh my God, I want to see a picture.
It was horrendous. It probably, if I got too close to a naked flame, it would just instantly combust. It was 100% rayon or something like that.
Polyester,
100%, and shiny for it. And I thought, right, I'll get down to the airport. Where do I need to find, thought I'll go and find businessmen or business people on their way to work. And so I went down to the airport. Before they had security, this is in Adelaide, they didn't have security, and I used to set up and wait for people to run off to get a plane to Sydney to go to a meeting. And I would try and get them to open up their briefcase, get some papers out or a presentation, bind it for them to get their card. And then when they got back, I would then spend my life cold calling them. So
how resourceful.
Tough job.
Tough job.
Tough job.
Not schools? You didn't think like schools would be a good place to sell?
So I think if someone else was doing that, that's what I started doing. I then sold all sorts of things. I think that was spectacularly. I sold a couple, but I wouldn't say I was a success. I sold furniture, I sold real estate, but then I got into insurance. And this is where I met a guy that also, you talk about people along the way that helped you, that gave you some life lessons, and his name was Warren Pierce, I'll tell you that in a second. Insurance. So he said, right, he said, we think we should go after truck drivers. So sort of big lorries, tractor trailer drivers. Why?
Okay, wait, I gotta stop you right there. So you know me as Laurette, but I think I've told you this story that my family calls me Lori. So I am truly Laurette, named after my grandma, but I grew up as Lori. And when I started working in Europe, and particularly England, Ireland, and what have you, and one of my colleagues was like, a lorry is a big truck.
A truck?
A big truck. And so, like, lorry for a woman.
Because you're a lorry. A lorry.
Doesn't go over very well over there. So, and I always have loved the name Laurette. It just wasn't my grow up name, So I go by both.
In England, you would be a lorry.
And I didn't like that because I'm 5'10" and I already feel big, and I'm like, oh, I don't like that at all. I don't want to be a big truck.
That's
so
true.
That just
in England, you'd be a lorry.
Yeah,
so in
it's
Australia,
it's not a pretty lose. Yeah. So you were selling insurance to lorry drivers,
to lorry drivers. So he saw, and why to lorry drivers? Why? Because these trucks are very expensive, like as much as a house sometimes. Yeah. The truck drivers are tend to be owner-operators. They own the trucks, they borrow a lot of money. And if they're ever off the road for any reason, that's a disaster. They can't pay their mortgage on their truck. Because they're own business people, they don't have life insurance, they don't have a pension plan, they don't have a disability insurance. And he had a way of, a company called IEA that went and offered really cheap insurance for the truck. So he said, right, that's what we need to do. And I thought, okay, good. Where do I find truck drivers? Because when they're driving a truck, it's a little hard to find them. And I thought, I know. There was in Adelaide, before you go up north to the Northern Territory, there's these huge truck stations where all the truck drivers get and they sleep. And I thought, aye, my son. So I used to go around there. He also said, make sure you dress for your market. So no tie, no jacket, just a shirt and a pair of trousers. And I would go and knock on the doors of these trucks and after I then had people that would throw coffee at me and I'd say, oh, I'm terribly sorry. Can I get you another coffee? You seem to have spilt your coffee all over me. They'd try and stick their dogs onto me. It was, but then I found one and I only need to get one. And I said, listen, let me give you a quote on your truck. When are you back? Also, he told me, again, I had to be back exactly when he said it was going to be, if it was a Saturday. I came back, I met him, I gave him a quote on his truck. It was good. And that then allowed me the opportunity to talk to him about other things, and eventually I sold him other things. And the other good thing about truck drivers, they all talk. So all of a sudden...
Because they're maybe lonely, right?
They're lonely, but also he had a good deal on insuring his truck, and he then started to trust me about his disability insurance, his pension, other insurances, that he would then tell other truck drivers that he was friendly with.
And you know what? That is like of service, right? I mean, they truly need that. And they probably didn't know it, but they truly needed that.
Because actually, especially on disability, and whilst they think, well, by the way, I used to make commissions on that. That was true, good commissions. But if they are off the road, I mean, that can be horrendous. And there are bad risks because, especially in Australia, it's all long haul. There's no short haul. Everything's long haul in Australia. Mm-hmm. So, and in my first month, I was numbered in the top 10 in Lumley Life, which was an English insurance company. I was in the top 10 sellers in my first month selling insurance. However, I was another moment where I sold some bonds and I sold it to someone who'd been made redundant. And I had no idea what I was selling, frankly. And I had the check and I should have put it in. And I didn't, and that was when one of the stock market crashes happened. And I went back to him on the Monday and I said, you know what, you need to take this to a proper financial advisor. I would feel miserable if I'd put that in. He would have lost half the value of that bond if I'd put it in. And then I said, you know what, I can't. This is not a business that I can be in longer term. Whilst, yes, I was helping out truck drivers on some of the other thing, I thought, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing, and I need to really feel like I'm doing the right thing by the customers that I'm working with. So But that, by selling insurance and being really good at it, working in a kitchen, got me into Unilever, bizarrely enough.
That's really interesting.
Because Unilever, I don't know if you know much about Unilever's DNA is fat.
Yes,
It's not very
I
sexy.
do know. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So Lever Brothers was the soap maker from England. Uni as the United Margarine Board of Holland. They were both competing for fat. So they did soap, they did oils, they did shampoo, the ice cream. There's one common denominator, and that's oil. So I got a job. I didn't even know who Unilever was, and all of it. And Unilever, if you know, they only employ the best of the best, and I would hardly say I was the best of the best. But somehow I got into Unilever and managed to, that was where I started to learn, you know what, let's find if there's a problem, what does the company really want to do? And are there some specific things that the company is trying to do, and can I do that? The first one was flora margarine portions. And they were launching flora margarine in the retail shelves, and they wanted to have little portions in food service. So they put out a thing, can you get 100% placement in all the major hotels? If you put butter out, why can't you put margarine and give people a choice? It's a 5-star hotel.
Yeah.
So I went around and went, aye, my son, here's a chance for a young man. So I went out and managed to get 100% placement of
Wow.
this. The only one.
And do you think that any of your working in that 150-seat restaurant helped with that?
I'm sure, because I knew a little bit about chefs. I knew a little bit about food and beverage managers, F&B managers. I knew that you couldn't go there. You know, this is most of the reps that worked. I was your pesky oil rep in Unilever. Most of them would only call on the supermarkets or cash and carries.
They were scared. They were scared of the chefs, probably.
Either that, or they were lazy, or it was off. It was outside their comfort zone a little bit, so they didn't do it.
So what was your magic to getting in there?
I just turned up and I talked about choice, and I talked about service and offering a choice. Anyway, I managed to get 100%.
Wow.
That got the eye of the MD, or the managing director, or the president of the company, and he flew down to see who this lunatic was that managed to get this, and took me out to lunch. I remember we went out to the Hilton. I'm a young boy. I'd never been out for a business lunch. That's what all the smart people do.
Yeah.
And I had wine. Was like, wow, this is sort of not slightly naughty at lunch. And he said to me, listen, Paul, if we want you to go to Sydney into head office, would you go? And I said, I can be back tomorrow. And he said, hold on a minute, I'm not ready yet. But he then, a few months later, he embedded me in a company called Mrs. Crockett's Kitchen, which was a salad company. And why would Unilever be interested in acquiring a salad company? Because it was dressing, mayonnaise, oil.
Yeah.
So I was sent up there, and my job was to launch a food service business and to sell salads, not only to the sort of retail area, but to food service as well. So, and I did super well. And then another one of Warren Pierce taught me about doing things differently. He also taught me a little bit about, or the other thing the insurance guy taught me was, when you're having a bad day, buy yourself something. Because you're a salesperson, you've got to pick yourself up and you've got to get yourself back on the horse. And he was being sued by ex-wives and God knows what every day. And I walk in, I'd see Warren, and and he's puffing on a pipe, and I say, Warren, bad day? You don't know the half of it, but I got a new pipe. And that's...
I thought you were saying, got a new car.
That
too.
Said, it doesn't do much for the bank balance, but it was... And today, that translates into champagne for me most days.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you and I have a love for champagne.
Yeah.
I remember, it's healthy.
It's healthy for the mind.
It is.
Just as good. If you're having a bad day, bubbles. Having a good day, bubbles.
Look at what that says over there. I only drink champagne on 2 occasions, when I'm in love and when I'm not. Coco
Perfect.
Chanel.
There you go.
I thought of you when I bought that.
Perfect. So that was Warren Pierce's big life lesson. Then I got brought in after my salad selling. There was a guy, the other very inspiration, great manager, and this is what I've tried to emulate. Sometimes a bit of tough love, sometimes honest feedback is certainly good, even if the person receiving it doesn't want to hear it. It's sometimes
Have you ever heard
really
that
good.
saying, being kind isn't kind? You know,
Yeah.
that's what I struggle with, and I think that's a really good advice for our listeners. It's like, that tough love and that candor and that direct conversation does change lives.
Well, he probably is one of the most influential people that changed my direction. I was so full of myself if I look back. I migrated at least from the 100% polyester suit maybe into something slightly more cotton for Australia, but I was still full of myself.
And this was Tex?
This isn't Tex, this is Noel Benson, a guy called Noel Benson.
Oh, Noel Benson,
So
okay.
he brings me in after 3 months. I'm doing super well, I'm killing it, selling everything. I'm doing really good. I'm getting out early in the morning. I start early and I'm really working hard, doing everything the old man had taught me. He brings me in after 3 months and he sits me down and he said, so how do you think you're getting on? And I went to town. I've done this, look at all the things I'm doing. And he said to me, do you want some feedback? And I remember thinking,
No, I really don't.
yeah, I remember exactly. I remember thinking, I don't care what you've got to say. Look what I'm doing here.
Right.
He said, I think you're doing a terrible job. And I said, excuse me? Have you just not listened to what I've just talked about? All the things I've done? He said, Paul, absolutely agree. What you've done is amazing. In such a short time to achieve what you've done here by yourself is super good. But let me ask you a question. If you walk out of here, out of my office right now, and you go and see anybody in this building and you ask them to do something for you, what do you think they would say? And I said, I don't know. I don't talk to them. And he said, that's your problem. What you're doing is great. The reason I'm talking to you this is because I think what you're doing and how you're going about it is great and you have super abilities. But if you don't find a way of galvanizing, of enrolling others to your cause and getting people to work for you and with you and to charge that mountain.
You were a lone wolf.
Yep, and you will only be
That's-
as good as what Paul Graham
And that's
can
like
be.
I think it's a challenger sales, I'm not sure, but term. And yeah, and lone wolves can be really successful, but I love what you're saying, that you really need the team behind you and you need to galvanize the team behind you because you're only going to get so far. You can't scale without
Yeah.
other people.
Which is his big point. You can have a successful career and you can do really well by yourself. He seemed to see something in me and said, I think you've got the ability to go much further than that, and I think you owe it to yourself to see if you can manage a team and enroll people and galvanize them into some sort of effort. And he said, now you got one of two choices. You can walk out of here and go bollocks to you, I don't care about you, or you can walk out of here and do something with it. And I walked out and I went, okay, because I'm competitive, I'll show you, Noel Benson. And I went out and I saw Joanne, who was an account manager, and I asked her what she was doing, and I made sure I was part of the team, and I continued to go on until I was then transferred to head office. And years later, he retired. He used to call me Buffhead. It's a very Australian thing.
What does that mean?
I don't know, knucklehead or something. He used to call
Okay,
me
yeah.
Buffhead. And he retired.
Term of endearment.
It's a very Australian thing. Calling someone a name means you've made it, actually, in Australia.
I get it. A
Yeah.
nickname is a term of endearment
Yeah.
for sure.
So he used to call me Buffhead. And a few years ago, he rang me up and he was retiring. And he rang me up. He said he was going his retirement party, and I was over here. And he said, Buffhead, I'm only going to tell you once, I'm proud of you. So, which I thought was super cool of him. Because he fundamentally, I would have gone down a very different direction if it wasn't for him turning me around and making me think about some of those things. And I still think about it today. And by the way, I've said that story to people, the next generation, people that are working for me, that I find the same thing as me. I've said that same story. It's that same advice I've passed on.
So cool. The people that really changed the trajectory of our life.
And then they moved me to Sydney and put me in marketing. Oh, it's a wonder I didn't get fired. My first brand was a disaster. It was called Dynasty. It was a Chinese lard, and we had to withdraw it after a year. I thought something was really funny about an above the line campaign of a pig with a hat on. I thought it was really funny. It was highly offensive and
So what?
I know.
So it was lard?
it was. So Unilever had created this lard. So in Australia, there's a big Asian community. It was just getting going, and they all use lard in their wok cooking.
Yes.
And there was a shortage of it. So Unilever, being Unilever, could make lard taste like lard with a combination of lard and tallow, and they
So it was
refined
a lard analog.
lard analog. I called it 6 Crowns. I called it Dynasty with 6 crowns. It was a super good name. It was all white. It was super good, apart from my advertising campaign, which was a disaster. I don't know why I didn't get fired, frankly. But luckily,
So wait, I read this. So it was a pig? What
it
was
was
your
a pig,
campaign?
a pig's head, with a chef's hat on, holding a knife and fork. It's a disaster.
And yeah, so
It wasn't Dynasty. It wasn't 100 years old. It didn't have any. It was. I thought it was funny. I thought it had cut through, but
yeah, we did a campaign in Mexico, and we didn't use the right translators, and it ended up being a really we were saying something very dirty. It was horrible. Little did we know, cut that. So,
Yeah.
It happens.
so. But luckily, we got a new guy called Tex Gunning. So if I think
I love his name. When I was reading up on your
Tex
site, I'm
Gunning.
Tex Gunning. I want to name my kid Tex Gunning.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want a name like that?
so, and you would imagine what he would be like.
Yeah,
huh?
I see Texas, but you said he was Denmark, right? Or
He was from Holland, from
Holland,
the
yeah.
Netherlands.
Yeah.
So he was this small, bald little guy. So we imagined we got this new managing director was coming into the company in Unilever. So Unilever is a super good company in terms of training their workforce. I mean, I've had more training than I think I've been on every course known to man.
That's good though. That is good.
And they would move people around the world to give them experience. And he
great.
so he got put into Australia. This was his first job as a managing director, they called it at the time, or president of the company. Mm-hmm. So he comes in and he's got these piercing blue eyes and he's this little guy. And I imagine it's going to be a big American with cowboy boots, Tex Gunning. And here's this little guy that comes in with these piercing blue eyes. And he talks to me, and I get to know him a little bit. Now, what Tex would do, he would then decide to take his management team and he would invite us individually up to his office. And he would start to teach us about industries, how they're converging. So if I think about the flavor industry now, flavor industry with ingredient companies buying flavor companies, natural ingredient companies going that, you've got these industries converging. He would talk about and explain what that means, where the gaps are, what that's likely to happen. He would spend a lot of time teaching us about that thing, about different things. One of the successes I did was hollandaise sauce. So I saw this product in Germany. It's a huge product. It's also now huge in Australia. So my legacy is it's there and it lasts. And I thought that would be a super great product. Emulsion sauces are tough, especially in a place that's hot like Australia. Breakfast and brunch was just getting kicked off with eggs Benedict, that type of stuff. And I thought this would be super good to solve problems for chefs and cafes all over the place. This technology was patented, all the right things that Unilever love, but it had to be imported from Germany. And so I asked for he used to come into the office at 7:30. We all got there very quickly in the morning, and he'd come into my office and he said, "By the way, how are you going with that hollandaise sauce?" I said, "Yeah." I sent them an email to Germany, and he said, "And then what happened?" "Yeah, I didn't hear back." He said, "What'd you do then?" Well, I sent him another email, and he said, "Let me ask you a question. Do you think this is a big thing for us? Do you think this would work in the market? Do you think there's a big market for it and we could build a big business out of it?" I said, "Yeah, I do." He got up, he shut the door of my office, and I went, "Rot roll.
Uh-oh.
Rot roll.
I'm in trouble.
Spaghetti roll. Something's going to go on here." And he pretty much tore strips off me and said, "I don't want to hear those mealy-mouthed, whiny comments anymore. If you think this is a big opportunity, you get on a plane today, you get over to Europe, you get the product, and you bring it back."
Love that story, Paul, because, oh my God, I say this often, how many times I hear from salespeople, "Oh, I sent an email, didn't hear anything," and I want to jump out of my skin.
Yeah,
How many do you and I delete a day?
indeed.
That doesn't do a thing for me.
Nope.
Do not send me an email. Do not send me a LinkedIn. That is just, yeah.
Same.
Doesn't do anything.
Same.
To get someone's attention, you have to be very creative.
You do. And then he had one caveat. "I want you on a plane. I authorize you today. Go over there. I don't want to ever hear these weak excuses about about why you couldn't get something. If you really think it's a big idea, you go and get it and make it happen." Mm-hmm. And he said, "However, before you get on that plane, you spend all that money on the company's resources, make sure this is a big market for us and going to really work." And I went, "Oh, God." And then he just left. And I went, "Oh, bloody hell." But I didn't get on the plane. But what I did, I stayed late that night. I rang Europe and I said, here's my FedEx courier number. I need this stuff. Send it to me." And I had it there. So I got it there quicker than I could get over there and get it myself. We launched it. And by the way, it's the staple in the Australian market today. hollandaise, Chiron, and a Béarnaise sauce.
And they didn't have it there before.
And they never had it there. Didn't exist. That's gone on and done some things. So
That's huge.
he was certainly very driven, certainly very smart. He was the one that forced me to say, you know what, Paul, that's great, but you really need to get an MBA.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
So he then paid for me. So Unilever paid for me to get my MBA, which was at AGSM, Australian Graduate School of Management, which is part of the University of New South Wales. It's like the place to get your MBA from.
Did you have to do it like at night or how did?
Yeah, it was horrible. It was 2 nights a week, and then it was on weekends, and I'm working full time. It was horrendous.
Hard.
It was super hard, and I had to go to lectures. It was also where I thought I was in marketing. There was a marketing part of the course, and I remember I'm full of myself because I'm in Unilever, and Unilever is a marketing company.
Yeah.
And I'm in sales and marketing. And I thought, man, I know all this stuff about brands. And I did this, and one assignment I did a huge amount of work on, and I really put my effort into it, and I gave it in, and I got back and I got a credit, and I went, credit? I need a distinction. And so I went back. It's this big auditorium, all tiered up, and you go down the desk, and the professor's down there. And I gave it back to him, and I said, he didn't put any comments there. I said, could you remark this? I said, why? He said, why? Because I've only got a credit, and I'm expecting, full of myself, I'm expecting a distinction. So he said, okay, he marked it. I'll ring you during the week, because I had my next assignment. He didn't ring me. And I was waiting for it. I went back to my next lesson. You didn't ring. Oh, yeah, sorry, I got caught up. And I said, well, you know what? I'm starting my next assignment. I'm expecting a distinction. I really want some feedback as to what it is, what I should do to get one. I then also found out a little bit about him, which was the other thing I did as I went through my MBA, find out about what's the background of my professor. He's only ever been in academia. It's probably going to sound a bit naughty what I did, but I found out about who he was. I come from academia. This is his first job. He's the chair of this subject for Australia. So the AGSM was affiliated with other universities around Australia. He was the chair. I'm Unilever, and one of 3 people was sent and paid for. It's like BP, like ExxonMobil. It's like big companies sending people to a university. They want that. The last thing you want is a bad rap from these guys. So I thought, you know what? He then rang me the next week. He finally did, and I had the question highlighted. And he said, well, to be fair, I would have liked you to put more effort into such and such or expand more. And I said, can I just read you the question? So full of myself when I listen to it now. And I said, it specifically says, don't do that. And he said, well, you know what? If it makes you any better, you were so close to getting a distinction. I said, it doesn't make it any better. If it's so close, make me a distinction. Anyway, since then, I got distinction. And at the end of the MBA, we came up and we had to do like a business plan. It was like a culmination of all the subjects. That's how they worked it.
Yeah.
And we did a business plan, and I did it. I'm still in Unilever. I did it on tea. This was my little love affair with tea.
Oh, yeah.
So I did it on tea, and what you could do with tea. This is my MBA, and you had to do a 5-year business plan, P&L, balance sheet, cash flow statement,
Cool.
the whole thing. And I could not, for the life of me, get my balance sheet to balance. And I took it into Unilever, and I said to the financial guys, I can't get my balance sheet to balance. I said, Paul, don't sweat it. It never balances. And I went, yeah, but it's numbers that have to. Anyway, so I'm really stressing because I now have to get my last assignment in. This is almost the end of my MBA.
And I want distinction.
And so I did, I hope they can't go back years later. So I'll tell you what I did. So I went through years later, might have to edit this bit.
That's cool.
And there was the assets and liabilities, and there's a whole set of numbers.
Yes.
And year 1 it balanced, year 2 it was out by a little bit, and then it was out by a little bit for the 4 years. And I went, oh my God, I can't get it to work. Unilever finance guys can't get me to work. So eventually I got to get it off. So I overwrote the totals so that they equaled. And I sent it off, and I went, right, 35 students in the class, 35 business plans, times 5 years. Do you think anyone's going to go and look at that?
Never.
Anyway, I
Never.
submitted it. They then said...
Can I tell you how much I hate balance sheets? I love P&L. Well, all right, love is a strong word. I get P&Ls. Balance sheets have always.
Really?
There was a class at Purdue, Accounting 401. I still remember. Accounting 400, I think it was called. And it was infamous as a flunk class. Like, it was a weed out class, they would call it, that, like, it was the hardest damn... food science, I took science, all that. That accounting class was the hardest freaking class I ever took. But, like, I got the credits and debits, but balance sheets have always blown my mind.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like them.
So when I was doing this
Like
course,
that it all has to equal. Like,
of course it does, because the P&L is connected through retained earnings on the balance sheet.
Yeah.
Cash flow statements connected on cash in the balance sheet. So it's all connected, which means it has to balance if you're doing it properly.
If you do it right, yeah.
I mean,
I would have really struggled with making my balance sheet balance. I just get what you're saying.
And I did. And because it had to go and had to be marked, so I sent it in. I overwrote the total so that they would equal. So if you added up the numbers, they wouldn't equal the total. I sent it in, and I got back. They said, we're going to pick the best 3 business plans from the year, and we're going to send it to the Australian CPAs, Certified Practicing Accountants. It's like the organization that oversees accountants. And I went, yay! My balance sheet, my business plan is being taken as the number 3. Boo! It's going to the CPAs. They will find this. And then you work out later on why things like Enron happened and other things happened.
They didn't find it.
They didn't find it, and I won. So I won the best business plan of the year in my MBA class.
That's so interesting.
Can you imagine? So weird.
I remember back in the old days at Edlong, we had literally one computer when I started. This is like 92. And we did a lot of stuff on paper. And this is insane because Laurette math is Laurette math. It's kind of like Paul math. And things would be off like by point, like a penny.
Yeah.
And those crazy CPA people want to find the penny. I'm like, fuck the penny.
Yeah.
The penny doesn't exist.
So you know,
but a penny can really mean
it's true because there's something wrong.
there's something wrong.
That means there's
but
something
I'm like,
wrong.
Erase that.
I know. It's a rounding error.
It's a penny.
Yeah, whatever. But there is something wrong. So
there is something wrong.
So after that, so years later, I then started to build business plans for people, just friends of mine, and I did it on Excel, and I would reconstruct from first principles. I would make a P&L with all the assumptions, balance sheet, cash flow, run it out 5 years, and then I used to bore. I had girlfriends at the time. Were like, give me any assumption. I put all these assumptions in, and I go brrr, and it would populate into the P&L. But now go and have a look at the balance sheet. You see it exactly equals. Such a nerd. I wonder why she left.
Right.
Let's go to the movies.
Sounds like a horrible date.
Yeah, let me take you out to dinner. Would you like to look at my spreadsheet? Oh my God. Oh my God. Now it all becomes clear.
So was that MBA story of the T, is that what came to be?
No, that started then. So I'd just been transferred because Tex Gunning then left Australia and was back in Europe, and he enabled me to be transferred to Switzerland. Oh. So I lived in a place called Zug, which is German or Swiss German for train, little train. Zugli, little train. Zug is a tax haven. So imagine, I'm an expat, my first expat job.
Oh, you're making tons of money.
My disturbance allowance, in case you had to cancel your cable TV halfway through your contract, things like that.
There's a disturbance allowance.
There was a disturbance allowance. It doesn't happen anymore. These are the old days. No. I went down. I mean, I'm like, 29, 30 or something at this point. So they said, I hope you don't mind. We're going to open up a bank account, a Swiss bank account, still have one.
Good. Oh, that just sounds
cool.
Got
no money in it.
007. Yeah.
But I do have a Swiss bank account. And I have 3 passports. I'm golden. So
get out of Dodge.
I hope you don't mind, Paul. We're going to open up a bank account before you get here so you won't have to pay any tax. I went, sure. And so they gave me my card for the ATM. I went down there, 42,000 Swiss francs. That's like just over 40, that's like 45,000 US dollars now.
Wow.
In my bank account. I've never seen anything like it in my life. I went, wow, this is fantastic. Living in Switzerland. I was doing, it was the job, he got me there. I had a European job. It was the first time I did a job which I've always promised myself I will never, ever do another staff job. I always call them all care and no responsibility. I'm a guy, some people love them. Mm-hmm. I'm a guy that needs a P&L. I like to have a P&L. It's like my measuring stick of how am I doing. I've got these levers you can pull if you can make decisions. You get a bit more freedom, I think, if you've got a P&L rather than a staff job.
So that means, like, just for listeners, like, that might not get that. I get what you mean, though. But that means you have responsibility, authority, and control, really, right?
Yeah.
That you really can make a difference. Yeah.
So I'm doing a sales role, European sales role. So I would go in, but people didn't report to me, but I'm like a functional center of excellence, if that's what I was. But you would go into France or into Belgium or something else, and you would think you would agree, okay, we've agreed this is what you're going to do. Yes, absolutely. You go back, nothing happened. Well, my direct boss said to do something else, and I was so frustrated.
Priorities change.
Drove me up.
It was like a balloon you blow up and it deflates when you leave.
Yeah.
Yep.
And always being able to make something happen, be responsible for something, and then all of a sudden it's like, but we talked about this and we agreed it, and we said you were going to do that. Yeah, well, something else changed. Drove me up the wall. And then the chairman of the UK, it was the chairman of the UK business. This is a big business at that stage. I think it was like £1 billion turnover, made a bucket load of money. That Unilever's always struggled with innovation. How do I really get out of my core products and really get into new products? So that's why if you look at Unilever, they pretty much use their balance sheet. There's that balance sheet again. To buy things.
Yeah, no, but that's wise. I mean, I get that. Yeah, when you're that big, it's like, how do you use that as asset to grow?
Yeah, and they really struggled with that. And so the chairman then decided he was going to take £3 million, £1 million each, and he was going to put out basically a plea or a call to action for people to come up with ideas of what if he took them out of their day job and put them and they had a good idea that would do something innovative around a core product in a new channel or something like that. That's what he would do. And I went, aye, my son. Here we go again. Here's an opportunity. Here's a company that's got a problem with innovation, which it did. And as I go around and I talk about curiosity, so as I'd flown around, flown back from Switzerland back to Australia and vice versa, I would stop in Singapore. I'd go to the markets and I would see people doing pulled tea. So it's hard, big, strong Assam tea, which is rich and strong tea, and they would brew it with fresh ginger and put condensed milk in it, which was thick and almost unctuous in some ways. But they would pull it from one cup to the other and aerate it, and so you had this sweet, strong tea, like builder's tea, with this sort of warming taste in your mouth from ginger. That from chai tea, before chai tea was even here. Yeah. Before I came here and saw Oregon chai, before it even was here. So I saw all that. So I put together a tea concept of all my travels, and I went over and said, "What we should do a tea concept," which he signed off on. That got me to move over to the UK, and we launched a tea concept.
And you have to say how Howard Schultz kind of had a little role in that.
So I'd also read Pour Your Heart Into It, which is, I think, the first book Howard Schultz did.
Yeah, and I didn't read that one, but I read Onward, which is very similar about the experience.
Yes. And I thought, why can't tea be just as good? It comes from the same places as coffee. That's where it's grown. Whereas coffee is all about extraction and tamping and pulling this stuff out of the thing. Tea is all about the leaf and this beautiful change of hot boiling water. By the way, has to be boiling water.
Yes, it does.
Into tea. And why couldn't it have the same sort of cachet and we create an experience, and that will be good for the brand? It ended up being called Lipton. We won it. It was called Lipton Cha as the expression of what we did. It launched a range of other drinks that then became into retail. And we also created
and I love
a tea
how
bird.
you talk about the team. Like, talk a little bit about the team that you had that helped make that such a huge success. Like, what was different about them?
So I was given, you could bring 2 other people. You can get a small team. You can come out of your day job. I moved to London, and I employed 2 people, both Oxford graduates, both smart as a whip. Dougie, who was the operation guy, I'd never done that before, but my boss always said, also said to me, always employ people that are smarter than yourself, that really have an energy and are super smart, and give them a task and they'll work it out. if you employ, and if they're really driven, they'll work it out. And that was Dougie, super driven, and also Peter Valentine Boucher, which is bring both Oxford men. And we put this together. We then created a different theme about us as a team. So I called myself Minister of Leaves. In a Unilever that was like not done. No. I printed business cards which are in a lozenge shape with Lipton Char on the front with Minister of Leeds, got in trouble. You can't print business cards. There's a form for that. And I went, no. Went down to Snappy Print and 300 quid later, I got some business cards.
That's renegade.
Yeah, we did. We were really renegade. We did things. We printed T-shirts around about what we were doing. And we went out, we built a tea machine, patented it, won a Millennium Innovation Award, went to the ceremony with Tony Blair, the Prime Minister at the time, because it's about tea and it's British. And we created this whole experience around tea, all because of the team that came together. And it really was this team. This thing about Noel Benson, I think about the themes that have run through my life. It's very much about find the best people, galvanize them together, and really get them onto a task, and they'll work it out.
That is the big lesson, and that you're always the come in and fix stuff. And so you got to end on, so, I mean, on your journey, got to get to Simrise, because Simrise was...
So Unilever then wanted me to go to Vietnam. I didn't want to do that. Then wanted to go to China. And then I had a coach in Unilever, which I actually thought was a bunch of rubbish when I thought about it. I really valued it because I'm very tasky. And I went to see him just as I was about to go, and he said, "Why are you doing that?" He was at Allied Domecq. And he said, "Why don't you come to Adelaide Domecq? Because we need what you did on the tea program that you did was great." So I went to Adelaide Domecq. Then that got bought by Pernod Ricard and split up. Mm-hmm. And then I met a guy in Leicester Square at Chiquitos, which is a Mexican-ish restaurant. And he said, "Why don't you come to the flavor industry? We need someone to run this company. UK is not doing well. It's a fixer-upper, if you like. Misses its numbers always. It's lost its way a little bit. This is an industry in transition. This is an industry that's consolidating. You get to deal with innovation, all the good ones and the bad ones. You're right in the thick of it, of innovation. That's what you like." And anyway, I ended up joining Simrise at Away, and my mission was to double the business. That wasn't my mission. It was given to me by 2007. So, and I remember sitting in my office that day and I went, "My God, what am I going to do? I don't know anything about the flavor industry." I remember thinking, I hope I have the internet so I've got something to do all day. It was a big glass office and everyone was looking at me like the boss.
Staring at you. What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
He's going to come out with this big pronouncement. Bah-bah. Yeah. And I went, "Oh, bloody hell." And I thought, what would Tex do? And I went, you know what? I went and talked to every single person in that organization, from the sample person to the head of sales. I talked to every single person. It took me 2 weeks. I thought, how easy is this? Yeah. Invariably, the other thing I've learned is people in organizations invariably know what needs to be done. They know what the problems are. They know what they think. And they need someone to bring it all together,
integrate it.
And integrate it, yeah.
They'll tell you what you need to know for sure. And I think that's huge. And you were like the quarterback of it all.
I think probably. And all I did was put out the vision. I talked about the vision, the values that we wanted to espouse. I took the whole company offsite. Oh, my German boss went spare. "Paul, you can't do that." And I went, "But why not? Every single person in this organization has to be part of this turnaround, part of doubling this business."
I love the word galvanizing that you use. I think that is a beautiful trait, and it's hard to do. It's not as easy as it sounds. And it is taking them off site and building relationship and trust. Yep. Trust, right? Trust is at the base of it all.
Yeah, and I like to think that, you need to be authentic. That helps build trust. Say like I wouldn't say I'm as a president and CEO as what I am now. I wouldn't say that I'm the most polished president you've ever had.
But it's authentic.
But this is me.
Right.
And you know what?
And I believe you had said before that your dad had said that to you too. Be yourself.
Be yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the person you take to work is the one you take home again. It's exactly that same person.
Yeah.
So I took everyone off site. I talked about what we're going to do. I hand them each one an envelope. It's very theatrical, I remember, with Mission 007 on the back. It was laminated.
That's your marketing mind, though. Would you say you're more of a marketer or sales minded?
I think I'm probably more a bit of both, but maybe a bit more marketing.
I think so too. I kind of have this weird belief that you're one or the other, at least just what I've seen in my experience of like people either lean one way or the other. And just kind of learning more about you and researching you for this podcast, I'm like, I think you're more a marketer.
Yeah.
I think the whole 007 and like that was, it was a rallying call. You got people on a rallying call.
Yeah.
And it worked.
And we teamed things like our Christmas parties to it. I remember all the girls were like, oh, this is terrible, until 2 weeks before the event. Then all of a sudden it was the best thing ever because I could buy a new dress.
Yeah.
We had roulette tables. It was formal. We dressed up in bow ties. Everything we did was themed around the Mission 007, which, by the way, we made.
We were talking earlier today in a different conversation, but about when something bad happens, and I think I was mentioning to you, we had a cyber attack. I know many of us have, and thank God it all went well. But what was awe-inspiring to me is when my team is struck by something like that, that the uniting rallying call, and everyone's like, we got this, and like there's a bad guy out there, and we're gonna protect the core.
I mean, that's so good. That's when you know you got it. Yeah. When the team is like, it's an adversity, when the team comes together. We had something similar. It wasn't quite that bad, but it was something that was really shut the place down for 6 days.
Yep.
And everyone came together and worked over the weekend. It was like, there wasn't anyone like bitching, we got this. That's when you're like, wow.
And COVID, I feel like that way too in COVID. I mean, as much as I would never want to go back to that, but yeah, absolutely protecting each other, protecting the business. Like, yeah, that's, and I feel like your rallying call kind of fits in that. It was like, we got to get this done.
Yeah. So that was Australia. They sent me to Australia then because that was another business that lost its way. That was really quick. These were businesses that I always got to send places that had lost its way.
Right.
That either lost its way in terms of what they stood for, also what were we going to do, what we're not going to do. Lots of people don't also say what we're not going to do.
And that's a hard one.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to say no. It's definitely hard to, sometimes we get into our people pleaser thing. So now as the new president of FEMA, what are you going to do with
following on from the big footsteps?
Yeah, right.
So,
thank you. But no, I don't think so. And it's like, and we've talked about this. One year, I'm telling you, Polly, we're going to be sitting here and you're going to go, oh my God, that went so fast.
Sure.
It goes so fast.
Yep.
But I love that we are really getting better of handing stuff off to each other and supporting each other through it. But yeah, I'd love to hear like what your dream is on that.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a little bit at the last conference we had, and I think so. First of all, big shout out to all the presidents to got us to where we've got to.
Yes.
I think the real change for me was when FEMA, the Flavor and Extract Manufacturers Association, really for me started to pivot and shift a little bit. Was Suzanne and you, I think, huge. About being much more accessible, bringing the board together with the 6
galvanizing.
Galvanizing the efforts and the skills of the organization, of the association together. I think at some point, if I look back in our history, we're a little bit
we needed a 007. You got to come up with one.
Well, we've got the new strategic planning.
Yes.
So I think that's a perfect segue into sort of create, because not only will we need to put it together and make sure we're bringing up the talents and the
and
feedback.
Executing on it is the hardest part, as we've talked about.
Yep.
But you're perfect. You're perfect for this role because you've done this so many times, like the fixer role, the galvanizing role. And I think I would love to see that strategic plan come to life. And I know that's part of your dream too.
Yep.
But I think using all your experience in the past and applying it there, this can be a no-brainer for you.
Well, I'm not sure it's a no-brainer, but I had my first conversation with one of the committees there to really connect. It was a good half hour. We're going to do that with everyone. So following on from the footsteps, outreach into other organizations. What is it if you want to go far, go together? It's also, what's the other thing? It's always better with friends. It's always better with friends.
It is.
Let's continue that outreach to, this is the food and beverage industry, and this is, it's incumbent on us to either nurture it, look after it, and we're all participants in there. This is like taking everyone off site in the UK.
Yeah.
Similar thing. So I want to continue that, the work that you started with also Suzanne and the great work you started.
It is like a stewardship, as you're saying that. I'm thinking of stewardship, right? I think our roles in that association. It's honestly an honor for sure, but it's stewardship of an industry that we love, you know. And
Yeah.
you stumbled on it, as you said, and I grew up in it. But so many of the people that we meet in this industry stumble on it.
Yeah.
And
I've been
we-
here 20 years.
Yeah.
3 different countries in the flavor industry.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Who knew?
And my friend was right. You're dealing in the heart of innovation. The good one, you see the good ones and the bad ones, and you get excited about when you taste something that's really super.
And how about when you see something on the shelf that you know
Yeah.
you or your team
Yeah.
had something to do with? You're
Yeah.
like, that's
Yeah.
just the best.
I mean, when I was at Simrise, I created this little brand because I can't help myself. It's called Vanilla, and we're in vanilla extract in retail is a sea of brown. It's always brown bottles and very masculine looking with all little signatures and stuff. We created it white with a bamboo top, so it actually stood out. And we took the A and the I out of vanilla and registered it. It's true, you can find it. It's at Walmart and other places. It's called Vanilla, but it hasn't got the A and the I. Our vanilla is so natural, we took the AI out of it. Anyway.
That's adorable. That is so cute.
So
you're good at finding those blue oceans. I love that book. I think you love that book
Yep.
too, or you talk about it at least once in a while. But of trying to find, and sometimes those blue oceans are just like an inch away
Yeah.
from the red ocean. You know, it's just a little
Yeah.
off to the side.
Indeed. And I think it doesn't need to be complete revolution. It can be evolution, but if you can put a spin on it, if you can put something that gets it to stand out. I mean, FEMA, the other thing, for coming back to FEMA, is we got a pretty much, for the first time in a long time, a pretty new board. I think 80% is less than 2 years or something.
Absolutely.
So I think
And you and I have been on it for, what are we on, 8, 9 years?
we're the old timers.
We're the old timers. We are the old timers. So I think that they all have fresh perspectives and they're so innocent
Yeah.
in a good way.
But I mean, we had, as you know, we had this strategic planning session on the Sunday. What an enjoyable day. Most things get
It was
working on a
beautiful.
Sunday.
It was great.
Yeah. And you see the energy of brand new people, the excitement, the new ideas they bring. Everyone had a voice. So I think what's my role? Again, there's galvanizing, bringing the board, making sure that they're coming together and operating as a board. Because you just say, you know, this year's going to go quickly.
Yeah, wow.
And then we hand it over to Kelly as the next president here. So, you know, strategic plan's a big thing, continuing the outreach. There's a much more forward-looking stance I think we'll take as an
It feels like forward. It feels
organization.
progressive. It feels, I think you're on the crux of great stuff. And of course, I'm always here to help. And I really want to. And I think Suzanne too. It's like we have to not forget to, like, you know, just like you said, it's like that lone wolf thing. And how do we tap into other people to get more power, more scalability, and all of us reaching out to different associations. And I think we got some good ideas brewing.
And George and Verto, super.
Yeah.
I mean,
oh my
a
God,
super
amazing,
guy.
amazing.
Yeah.
So, would love to know what the legacy is that you want to leave behind.
You know, I've thought about that a little while, and I don't know. I don't want it to make it too cliche in terms of a number, but I into a little phrase. But I think, you know, I think the overarching thing is that I really made a difference. I think if I just had to sum it up, I made a difference. I made a difference to the businesses that I was a part of, that I led, that I was part of and led, that there's a real legacy, that they continue to go on. They were in a better state when I left them, and they continue to go on and flourish after I left. So I made a difference to the businesses, but more importantly, I made a big difference to the people. And I got a really nice thing that happened last year. It's a guy called Yazdi Darawalla in Australia. I employed when I was at Unilever, and I probably gave him a hard time. Talk about tough love that Noel Benson gave me. And it was a LinkedIn post, and he was retiring. I employed him as a salesperson, just like Warren, taught me to sell, and sat down with me, and really we would go through how we would pitch it and what questions we would ask and stuff like that. I'm reading this thing, he's just retiring, and there's this thing about he wanted to thank people after 30 years retiring from Unilever, still at Unilever. And he said, and by the way, I want to thank Paul Graham for teaching me how to sell. I haven't spoken to him for 30 years. So I thought that was really sweet.
That is a perfect example of the legacy you want to leave behind and exactly what you're saying. And I think that's huge. And it's the lives that we touch.
Yep.
And sometimes we don't even know we're touching.
Indeed. And so, you know, I think what's the legacy? I made a difference. I made a difference to the people. that they went on. Either I pushed them, I gave them the tough love, I gave them the feedback in a
And
time when they
sometimes
needed
you
it.
were a role model. I mean, sometimes it's being a role model, and they're like, okay, I want to aspire to.
Yep, I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I think,
definitely
for
so.
them is that they really have the courage to try.
Yeah.
It's so many people don't have the courage to try. They come. It's that thing that coming back from old man. If they give it to you, say yes. It's like they used to say, if they ask you to speak at a conference, just say yes. Tex used to say, just say yes, and then you'll forget about it, and then you'll come up the week before and you go, oh my God, why did I do that?
I've done
I'm
this
so
so many times.
stupid. I so shouldn't have said yes, because then it forces you to dig into the subject. What is it? The best way to learn is to teach. You have to dig into the subject, and it'll be fine, and it's good for you.
And
So
try
the
not to
courage-
procrastinate, because I totally know that. I've said yes, and then I've been like, damn it.
Damn it.
And yeah, you definitely, being prepared, as painful as it is
Yeah.
the best way to go forward.
Yeah.
And I love the word courage, and I love that you use that, because we use it in this whole concept of owning your legacy too, of having that courage to find your path and your passion and to do it, and it's not always easy, and you have to be brave. But what a pleasure. Thank you so much, Paul. Yay. So glad we pulled this off. And I think you definitely shared with the audience a lot of bits of wisdom and a lot of things that they can use in their everyday life, and go galvanize FEMA.
Super.
Yay.
Thank you. See you.